This video shows how to replace the DC capacitor's internal cooling fan and heatsink cooling fan on an ODP2 IP20 frame size 6B as part of the planned maintenance schedule. Place the drive on a flat surface that will prevent damage to the plastics and allow easy access to internal parts. Ensure anti-static precautions are always taken. To remove the terminal cover, use a Phillips screwdriver to loosen the two screws and lift it away. The torque setting is 1 Nm. To remove the upper plastic housing, remove the 5-way and 13-way terminal blocks. Use a Torx 25 screwdriver to remove the two screws. The torque setting is 2 Nm. Push in the two tabs at the rear and lift the housing away. Please note that the display cable needs to be disconnected and lifted away from the control board before the cover can be fully removed. Unclip the earth cable from the control board by pulling it away. To remove the lower plastic housing, unclip the control board ribbon cable by pushing the two tabs out and lifting it away. Remove the two screws holding the plus DC, brake and minus DC covers down using a Posi 2 screwdriver and lift them away. The torque setting is 1 Nm. Using a Torx 25 screwdriver, remove the 8 screws. The torque setting is 2 Nm. The lower plastic housing can now be lifted away. To remove the internal cooling fan, pull the fan connector away from the header and remove the two anti-vibration rubbers. The fan can now be lifted away. When rebuilding the drive, replace the internal cooling fan using the parts supplied in the Preventive Maintenance kit. To remove the heatsink fan, use a Torx 25 screwdriver and remove the two screws. The torque setting is 4 Nm. Use a Torx 25 screwdriver to remove the 3 screws. The torque setting is 2 Nm. Use a Torx 25 screwdriver to remove the 2 screws and pull the fan box away from the chassis. The torque setting is 4 Nm. Unclip the fan cable by pressing in the clip and pulling the connector away. To separate the heatsink fan from the fan guard and fan box, use a Torx 25 screwdriver to remove the 2 screws and lift the fan guard and fan box away. The torque setting is 4 Nm. Replace the heatsink cooling fan using the parts supplied in the Preventative Maintenance kit. Please note, do not refit the fan box to the chassis until you're rebuilding the drive. Using long nose pliers, press in the 2 clips and pull the fan connector away from the chassis. Use a flathead screwdriver to prise off the EMC AC spade connector. Separate the fan lead connectors by pressing in the clip and pulling them apart. Use a Torx 20 screwdriver to remove the 2 screws. The torque setting is 1.5 Nm. Remove the baffle plate from underneath by pulling it away. Use a Torx 25 screwdriver to remove the 5 screws. The torque setting is 4 Nm. Use a 10 mm socket to remove the 3 input bus bar bolts. The torque setting is 6 Nm. Use a 10 mm socket to remove the 3 output bus bar bolts. The torque setting is 6 Nm. Use a 17 mm socket to remove the V-phase nut and washers and lift away the V-phase bus bar to access the screw below. Use a Torx 20 screwdriver to remove the 2 screws, taking note of where each one goes. The torque setting is 2.5 Nm. Use a Torx 25 screwdriver to remove the 4 screws. The torque setting is 4 Nm. Use a Torx 30 screwdriver to remove the 2 screws. The torque setting is 6 Nm. This section can now be lifted away and placed on a clean surface. Please note, when rebuilding the drive, ensure the PCBs are sitting on top of the metalwork and not underneath it in these 2 locations. If needed, use long nose pliers to remove the 6 pillars by lifting them away. Unclip the ribbon cable by carefully pulling it away from the header. Use a Torx 25 screwdriver to remove the 7 screws. The torque setting is 4 Nm. The PCB can now be lifted away and placed on a clean surface. Use a posi drive screwdriver to remove the varistor and 2 EMC screws. The torque setting is 1.5 Nm. Remove the varistor cable by pulling it away from the connector. Use a Torx 30 screwdriver to remove the 9 screws and 3 filter capacitors. The torque setting is 6 Nm. Use a Torx 25 screwdriver and remove the 12 screws and DC bus wires, taking note of their locations. The torque setting is 4 Nm. Use a Torx 20 screwdriver to remove the screw and DC bus wire. The torque setting is 1.5 Nm. The PCB can now be lifted away and placed on a clean surface. Use a Torx 20 screwdriver to remove the 24 DC capacitor screws and lift the capacitors away from the chassis. The torque setting is 1.5 Nm. Replace the DC capacitors using the parts supplied in the Preventive Maintenance kit, ensuring they are fitted in the correct orientation. Rebuild the drive by reverse engineering the previous steps taken. Once any modifications have been completed to the drive, you must ensure the software is updated to the latest version.